Hello, 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 everyone. How is everyone doing this fine CPI Tuesday? Good morning, John. Good morning, Sterling. Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Bull Strike Cheetah. Good morning, PMG. Hope everyone is doing fine. People in the background, chime on in, jump into the chat. Again, we had CPI coming in slightly better than expected. So we'll go through that in a second. I'm keeping an eye on the 10-year yield, which was pulling back, and now only a little pullback on that. I'm going to watch today, especially how it closes. Closes to see if that actually drops with the better CPI inflation print, or if it's that people are looking at this as, especially the bond market, as lagging. The bond market not being lagging, with CPI being lagging. Good morning, Heinrich. So who else do we have? Did I say good morning, PMG? So I lost track of lost my train of thought. That's actually what a rough morning. Wow. Thanks for putting in the earnings, Sterling. Good morning, Tony. So again, there was nothing major. There was nothing major there. Business optimism coming in slightly better, a little bounce, but down from previous. Core inflation rate was expected 0.3, prior was 0.1, coming in at 0.2, so below consensus but above prior. Year over year coming in at 2.8 across the board. Inflation rate again up from prior but down from consensus. A little drop from consensus but a jump from prior. And year over year coming in at 2.3, first 2.4. Year over year, Red Book coming in at 5.8. So a little drop there but still hanging in there. Hello, Charles. These market recoveries are taking less and less time to happen. I'm a little confused on your statement there. Good morning, Jake. All right. Yeah, coin is being added to the S&P 500. All right, so today we have mega caps mixed. Meta, which hit the first target on the double yesterday. UNH down big, CEO stepping down, and it was already in a downtrend and missed some key earnings. So healthcare is still getting beat up a bit. In terms of your groups, let's just do a quick refresh here. Consumer cyclical and energy leading. Healthcare definitely lagging. Fed Watch has 2 rate cuts priced in now. Only 2 cuts priced in for the year. Fear and greed still solidly in greed. Schiller PE close to 36 again. Close to 36. So trying to pause here up against just above that 75% harmonic against another very key level, the prior breakdown level. Here's what I'm watching into the open. We still technically have this aspect of a double top. All right, it would need to roll over and get, you can see it on the 4-hour really well. You can see it right at that rotation zone. So this would be out of the way of the 4-hour rotation zone. That's the only thing I'm watching for a bigger pullback. Otherwise, I'll be watching down here at about 58.37, 58.35 for key support. If it does close below 58.35.75, then I will go shifting and watching for the bigger pullback. And then when I mean bigger pullback, I mean really it could get to 57.95, 5800. Still in the 4-hour rotation zone. So that is not shocking right there. Again, what would invalidate it if we pushed up above 58.8650 onto the open. So unless that triggers, I'm watching for a choppier with a slight upwards bias day. So in what the time overall and what measurement? Like in the major pullbacks? I mean, because we pulled off a high, but is this only recent? Because again, before it was making it was making highs consistently. This is a pullback, and there's no guarantee it's going to make a new high. I mean, we could easily still get up to 6K before rolling over again without making a new high. So, again, I need time frames on that. Good morning, Harold. What else do we have? So that's exactly what I'm looking at on the S&P, by the way. That would just take us potentially back to the 200. which is key support. And remember, major support is still just above slightly yesterday, about 57.25. All right, the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, there is no double in the NASDAQ. The only thing I'm really looking at in the NASDAQ is a little mini trend line, but you can pretty much follow the 4-hour rotation zone. Starts closing below the 4-hour rotation zone, especially below the defining point on the trend line, coming in roughly around 20,822. Then I'll start watching for possibly a bigger pullback, but the better pattern is in the S&P. Other than that, the next key target, 21,231. 21,231. The same pullback things as yesterday. Watch the daily rotation zone for the bigger pullback, the 4-hour rotation zone for the minor pullback. Dow, also, there's no double. We just dipped in the 4-hour rotation zone and bouncing. The key breakdown area for me is coming in about 42,190 for the slightly bigger pullback. Other than that, remember, the trend is still up. We're getting into topping areas, but not necessarily topping price action yet. So, hey, Smokey. Sorry, he got one of the dogs is outside with a squeak toy. Fantastic. What else? Russell. No double just yet. No double just yet. Would need to get above 2,124.5 to get into double top territory. Hold on 1 second. Let me just mute this for 1 second. 1 second. What happened to my mute button? Oh, why is it? Never mind. Never mind. We're going to have to deal with a crazy dog in the background for right now. So the other than that, we're coming in. Again, the key resistance on the closing basis is about 21.25 on a daily closing basis. So our 21.27. Let's go 21.27. That's what I'm still keeping an eye on. Again, very overbought. Cycles getting to the top, but they might not top out till later this week. VIX still dropping, coming into a very key support level. Still watching for some kind of a pattern. We're focusing on Thursday. DAX, not much to talk about. Key support bumping up a little, now coming in about 23,450. So far, remember, we've been very overbought. We have substantial divergence up here. Cycles getting back to the top. So far, just a sideways correction unless we start closing below the daily rotation zone. He does love that toy. That's a little Smoky. He's 25 pounds of French Bulldog firecracker. So, keeping an eye right here. Again, a slight pullback here in the 10-year yield, but not much given the CPI print. Okay, so I'm watching. Again, the major level I'm watching is 4.38. So as long as we hang out here, going to be watching for another rotation long signal into the yields. Dollar index coming up again to that 50 area, the second target on the sloppy inverse head and shoulders. Still going to be looking for a little pullback, watching the 4-hour rotation zone. So far, just a channeling pullback. And then I'll be looking for another rotation potentially up. The dollar index, we still have higher targets. It's not surprising to see a reaction off that 50. And also, it was a cluster because you had the target, you had the 50, and you have a prior key substantial breakdown level with this emotional bar going down. Back from some of the tariff stuff. Crude. Here's what I'm keeping a close eye on now. Coming right up to 62.5. I'm watching to see if this can get above over the next few hours, get above the 75, putting in a potential double top. against a very key, let me pull off this, against the very key 87% harmonic and prior resistance. So that's what I'm watching, and then I'll be watching for that to potentially trigger. If not, we need a close above the 50 for me to remain short-term bullish. Gold, trying to hold very key support, not confirming or triggering the double yet. Still technically in play. So that's the only thing I'm watching right now. So far, an inside bar from yesterday. Nothing's really changed. It'll be interesting, though, to see how this bar closes. I'll be watching to see if we get a potential percent B buy setup. And then that would make tomorrow today's high key. We don't know how that's going to end up with cycles getting to the bottom. Not much going on in silver. Still just caught in a range. That's why I've been talking about it. Copper, I'm still watching the declining trend line. Yen, going to be watching just as a dollar for a slight pullback and then a possible resumptive of trend trade, especially in the 4-hour rotation zone. Euro, bouncing off the second target and the 50 EMA. So I'm still going to be watching now the rotation zone for a potential rotation down. We just don't have one yet. So still watching for dollar pullback, watching for a little euro bounce, and then a rotation back down. Spiders. Here's your spiders. Big gap up yesterday. Still today looking at 582.99. Area, the next key target is 590 to the upside, and then 590, almost 597, 596.80. On any pullback, we have, let's see, yesterday's close, 582.99. We're trading 583.55 right now. And then yesterday's on any other bigger pullback, yesterday's low is key. Yesterday's low is key. And this one, I'm watching the 1-hour rotation zone. The Qs, gap up again, 509.54. Yesterday's close, 507.85. Next target's 513. 513.04, but really 513. Then 523.50. Again, if we move beyond the gap fill, yesterday's lows coming in right around that harmonic is very key to if we're going to start a bigger pullback. Bitcoin reacting to the 87.5 harmonic, pulling back to the rotation zone. So watch, continuing to look for the rotation back up. We are against the cycle, so we might consolidate for a bit more. And we close below the 4 hours. So I'm still watching for a bit more possible consolidation unless we break above this 105 area. Tesla. Huge gap up yesterday. Again, their insurance numbers out of China is absolutely disastrous. But again, nothing in Tesla trades off anything fundamental. So the next key target, if it keeps running, is 351, which is the full 50% retracement from the highs to the pullback lows. What else? We had Meta hitting the first target on the double. And the next key target, I'm paying attention to those 657.50 as a key target area, and then 667. Let's see. Hey, Christoph, how are you doing? So that's where we sit right now. NVIDIA, Broadcom, keep an eye on this. This just keeps power moving higher. Pull back to rotation zone. Could not yesterday close above the 62, or the Friday could not close above there, but definitely gap above there. So I'm still watching for higher prices in Broadcom also. Watching for this to reconnect with the 87.5 because there's not a lot of resistance. It's trying to gap above a key level right now. So going to be watching on any pullback for support to maintain. All right. That's where we sit. There's not much to talk about besides watching for pullbacks for continue to rally. At least we still have, what do we have coming up this week? because now the CPI is out of the way. Tomorrow, there is not much. We got a little Fed speak, but not much. PPI, retail sales on Thursday. And remember, on earnings. Earnings, we got a Walmart in the morning and Applied Materials in the afternoon. So the big day is really Thursday this week. And then Friday's you got Michigan consumer sentiment. So I'm really backloading this week in terms of watching for if we're going to get a topping pattern towards the end of next week and we still have cycles climbing. Where would I draw my harmonics now for coin? They're the same. They're the same. If you're looking, again, the very key level for coin that I'm keeping an eye on a continued move up is 246. 246 is going to be very key. Not only is it 50% from the highs to the lows, it's a major, major breakdown level. Again, coin got added to the S&P, but their numbers were not good. Their numbers were not good. This is just a rally based off getting added to the S&P. So, and it did trigger an inverse. It's sort of ugly, but it's technically, it's got the upward sloping neckline, unless you use a higher modified neckline, which is a slight lower probability. But if you're looking at those targets, if you're looking at the targets for that, I'd be watching this first key target area. That's about it. That's really a key target for anything separate from that ugly inverse head and shoulders. I think it's going to roll over, Coco, but we don't have again, we still have the magnet prices. You still have the 87.5 rule in play. So we could easily still get back to the high area. Everybody's back in rah-rah mode. People may, see you if you didn't buy the dip, which we bought the dip. It was a capitulation signal. Then it followed through with the double targets, and now it's following through with the 62.5 rule. But does that mean it's going to scream to new highs and everything's all clear? I hear people that I'm talking to calling for another 20% up this year. Because, yesterday we were 20% off the lows, so we're in another bull market. We're getting back to very, very complacent out there, and retail's just driving this market higher. So, can it keep going? Yeah, because we even have probabilities. Will I be watching up here for a topping pattern? Yes. Until one triggers, I got to stay on the side of watching for pullbacks. Because even your key support for the NASDAQ's now back at 20,400. For the S&P, your key support, your minor support is at this 58.30 area, but your major support is back at 57. Pullback to there does not destroy anything. Yeah, people, it's not only political views, it's, again, you mark my words, because at some point, this was a warning shot pullback, but we can have many more of these. Again, we get snapback rallies. Go look at how the dot-com bust started and the 2007 started. There were major first snapback rallies. Now, here's where everybody gets complacent, because everybody's natural dip buyer. Here's where it starts. Here's where people's portfolios. I'm not saying this has to happen, but here's what I'm going to be watching for, because everybody's like, "Oh, you didn't buy the dip. You didn't buy the dip. You're an idiot." Blah 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 blah. I wasn't referring to us, but what happens now if we roll over to dip buyers come in? Because again, this was again rewarded buying the dip, buy the dip, blah, buy the dip, blah, buy the dip, blah, and then it slowly bleeds out the portfolio. Especially getting to closer to the end of this year's where passive flows could start going negative. So, learn to watch the patterns, learn to play the probabilities, and don't get married to a positionality. This may well be a sucker's route. I'm in cautious but bullish mode, meaning you got to stay with the probabilities, you got to stay with the patterns. If a massive topping pattern forms, then I'll be looking for it to trigger. If something comes out of the blue and blindsides and takes out, especially we start taking out about 5,600, I'll sit up and take notice, and I'll start watching for the secondary reactions to watch to see if that rolls over. Until then, there's not much to talk about besides looking for the continuation patterns. Fine, hey, it's the markets. Something could happen. Something could come out of the blue. We're in the fourth turning. Something could come out of the blue. Very well, but you know what? I need a pattern. Now, if we get a huge downdraft pattern or start breaking some of these key support levels, I'm then going to really start shifting to, okay, are we setting up a key topping pattern that could get triggered? Other than that, I mean, look how many people were trying to short this whole thing going up. So, and we still got a bullish momentum to the upside. So, pay attention if you get sell signals. They could be short term unless they break key support, which we're nowhere yet there breaking. Something could come out of the blue. Who knows? But if it doesn't break key support, I got to stay on the watching for the pullbacks and then the rotation back up entries. Yeah, that's why I point out market is very overvalued. That's why I still point this out. People say, why did you point out a Schiller PE? Because look at this. Actually, what would be fascinating is we are in double top territory on a Schiller PE. Could this keep going? Yeah. But historically, this market is not cheap. 58.35 is not cheap. You have things like, we have a double top pattern in Palantir. Might never trigger, but I'll sit up and take notice if it does. And again, is Palantir cheap? The PE, the backwards looking was 512. The forward PE is roughly around 200. Think about that. Based off their projected earnings, you're still at 200 PE. Not cheap. But would I just be shorting this without it triggering a pattern? No. No. So that's what we have to be prepared for. So just know your setups, know your signals, and wait, especially for the short side, wait for things to trigger. Don't try to preemptively call a top. Because, yeah, could we get a little pullback based off a little mini 1 hour and 4 hour pattern? Yeah. Does that do anything to damage this run? No. Doesn't even get all the way to the bottom of the 4 hour rotation zone. It's just a potential pullback. With that, thank you for tuning in. I shall talk to everyone later. Have a wonderful, wonderful trading day. But there's nothing else on the agenda, is there, today? I forgot. I just double checking. No, there is nothing on the agenda today. There's not even any Fed speak. So it's just going to be, you got Trump in Saudi Arabia. So it's just going to be whatever comes out of the administration. Other than that, I'll talk to everyone later. Bye for now.